All right, it's Sunday. I'm going to start the music. Eric is on his way. Welcome to the Shaker Heights. Your experiences may vary. I'm Gabe Tolliver, host, and we have my man Eric Green on his way to the studio. So, we have a guest for you today on Sunday. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to bring him in right now. Coming to the stage. Coming to the stage. Some people may know him as Mark Fleming. But for here, this is Dr. Mark Fleming. Put some respect on his name. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you former Shaker, Malvern, trailblazer. Spent some time at Moreland and then went to the other school in the Shaker landscape. I'd like to introduce to you Mark T. Fleming, MD, the man with the brightest smile known to mankind. And it's sincere. Mark, thank you so much for coming to the show. Like I said, Eric is on his way, just untangling some wires. We have some problems. You know, normally we broadcast. Last week we broadcasted from the Coventry newsstand on the Shaker line in my mind. And now we're back over to the Linfield rapid stop in my mind. But the wiring is still needing to be updated to get us back because, you know, these stations are old. So just go with the flow.
Well, Gabe, thanks for having me. My son was like, interview? Why is someone interviewing you? You know,
They
if
don't
it's
know
on
yet.
YouTube, we'll watch. But if it's on
we're good. We're good. We started the intro. We're good.
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries. Welcome. I was just telling everybody we were just getting our wiring updated, and here we are.
All right.
Yeah. So Mark, so your kid doesn't realize it yet, right? Like, you know, he's got the teenager indifference. Like,
yeah, I'm just dad. You know, are you gonna bring home dinner? That's how he is.
Yeah.
Pick me up something from Wendy's or something like that. You know.
So wow. So how many kids you have, and how many?
We have two kids. I have a daughter who's 17. She's now a senior clerk, and a son, 13, Colin. And I'm married to Rolanda as my wife.
All right. Right on. Okay. Well, hey, as we always start off, let's start off with.
You want to move him to the middle? Move me out?
That's right. Move it to the middle. There we go. All right. So, tell us your Shaker origin story. Lifelong resident, parents.
Yeah. So, when you reached out to me, I grew up on Lindholm. My boy Eric Harris lived down the street, and Eric and I. So I claim Eric as my oldest friend that I still keep in contact with. Okay. I have many Eric Harris stories we can get into. We want it to be G, or we're both married men. We'll just keep it PG rated. Yes. But I grew up on Lindholm, and after kindergarten, after the December break, we moved over to Malvern. I remember racing across the street every day across Lee Road with Eric, and he doesn't remember the story, but I guess I pushed him because he was beating me because I hated to lose. I always thought I was fast. If Derek Burgess is watching, I'm still faster than Derek Burgess, for the record. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
It's funny the stories you remember. But we moved over. I have two older brothers, Chris and Jimmy, and we moved over to Malvern. And as far as I can remember, I was the first Black person to go from kindergarten to graduate Malvern in sixth grade. Wow. My brother obviously graduated before me, And when I reflect upon, you know, Shaker, Malvern, it was a melting pot. And as we kind of talk today, it's just interesting how my experiences growing up in Malvern and Shaker and University School, just kind of how we are today. Matt McNulty was always the nicest guy in the world, and Matt McNulty is successful because he was the nicest guy in the world. Timmy Pohl was one of the smartest people, and it's just interesting how we when we were kids we're the same people. I'm the same guy, from back in the day. So Malvern Shaker has just nothing but fond memories.
Right on. So that decision, when your family made the decision to move to the Malvern area, how was that in terms of like breaking the news to like your boy Eric and Derek and whoever the crew was, like, yo, we're moving up yonder, way on the other side,
My crew was Dwayne Wilson and Eric Harris. I remember from Moreland. I was really tight with Eric. And I was in kindergarten, so you don't really remember. I did elementary school with Ab Igram. I remember that. But you don't. It's hard to remember stuff. You just remember bits and pieces. And I don't recall, racial things. I think when I moved over to Malvern, I didn't necessarily recognize I was one of the few Black persons there. I had my two older brothers. And the first time I remember race being an issue is when I had in third grade or second grade, I had something to do about Martin Luther King. And I remember being kind of ashamed or afraid to kind of talk about, there was racism. And I remember kind of like fudging the answers because I wasn't uncomfortable. And that's probably the only memory that I had. When I was little, I think everyone got called the N-word at some point in time, and everyone got in a fight at some point in time being called the N-word. But that was rare and few between. But I just remember positive things growing up in, Malvern was, just good friends. So we were just friends. We just had fun. We played football every day. When it was in the fall and basketball season, we played basketball every day. And then when it got to be baseball season, we played baseball every day. That's kind of what we did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think Eric can attest. Like the Shaker Boys League was like our proto Facebook. Especially for the guys.
Yeah.
Before we went to school and stuff, and everybody has their Shaker Boys League stories. We haven't had somebody say, "Oh, not another Shaker Boys League story." People on there, but we'll get that near the end. If you have one that sticks out or whatever, with that. So, yeah, Eric, anything comes to mind so far?
Did you have braces?
Yeah, did I have braces? I had braces from like sixth grade to like 10th grade. I had braces.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I had braces for the longest time.
I guess I saw you around like we saw Denny Young around, and I remember you being in the crowd, but I never came. You were a face in the crowd. I remember, but I don't remember ever having dialogue with you. But I do remember you. Something clicked. I'm like, yeah, he had braces. That was one of the things. Yeah.
I think Denny would like the fact that you remember me as a sidekick of Denny Young. So I think he'd like that.
Oh, I didn't say that. I just said, Denny was always the mayor to me. He was always I don't know. He had that presence about him. I'm surprised he's not a politician of some kind.
Not yet. Never know. Never know.
Denny's good people.
Yes. He sure is.
Yes. So from Malvern to US, was that something you were planning on later on in like 5th or 6th grade, or was that something that popped up? Like, when speaking of Denny, I remember when we had him on, he was talking about the impact when he got the news from his parents, so like, yo, you're coming to take the test to go to U.S. and it didn't really register to him that he was like leaving the area to go to U.S. Was that something like you dealt with, or were you being prepared?
Yeah, so my two older brothers went to U.S. So Malvin went to sixth grade, and my brother Jimmy, we actually kind of credit him for a lot of our successes because he actually went to our father to say, "Hey, I want to go to U.S." And we have this little famous uh, story within the family that you know, one of my brother's classmates at Malvern was like, "Oh, you can't go to U.S." And my brother was like, "Why can't I go to U.S.?" And it turned out to be one of the one of the best decisions for me and my brother. So my brother Jimmy was the kind of the trailblazers. He was the first one to go. He's 4 years older than me. My brother Chris, who's 3 years older than me, followed. Um, and Jimmy and I both ended up graduating from U.S. My brother Chris transferred over to he went to Cathedral Latin, then Chanel. But you know, I think my experiences at U.S. were very, very positive, and just kind of learning to compete with, you know, made me realize that you know that I can compete with. You know, at the time we thought it was a great school, and I could compete with the best. So I think that really helped me professionally in terms of knowing that I belong. So I always knew I was a smart kid, but I never got straight A's, but I was always pretty good, and so I was always capable. I was always about having fun and playing football. I was a very good athlete. Played a lot of, I was a, at US I was track captain, MVP,
Okay.
and played in the football team. So I was always a very good athlete. So I was more of an athlete than I was, quote unquote, a student. I was a good student, but I wasn't a great student. I knew what I had to do to kind of to get by, so to speak. And I tested in high school. I tested fairly well. So unlike right now with my daughter starting the college process, man, it is way different. I remember, certain schools were backup schools. I mean, no disrespect to the people at Michigan, but Michigan was a backup school, and um, I knew I was going to get into Michigan. Again, no disrespect to the Michigan people. You guys won your national championship last year. But now we just had this week with my daughter. They said, and she's much, much smarter than me. My wife is really smart. My daughter is really smart. My son's smart. They said 12 to 20 schools you got to apply to. And, it's just like I applied to 4 and I got into accepted all but one. It's just, it's just times have changed. So I was a good student, good athlete, and I played college football.
Okay. So let's talk about that real quick. Let's take a little side.
Hey, let me ask you something. Do you have any other athletes in not your immediate family? Because I think of Marv Fleming. He was a tight end for the Miami Dolphins in the 70s. Are you related to him?
No relation. No relation.
Have you heard of him?
I have heard of him, and I get asked that question a lot, but no, no relation. I tease my brothers that I'm the best athlete of the family. My brother Chris is the most charismatic and funniest, and my brother Jimmy is quote the smartest. So we're just no sisters. So we jab each other all the time. I'm sure I'll get lots of texts. I turned off my phone because I'm sure they're texting me now. At least my brother Chris is, of all the things that I said or didn't say. Okay. But yes, I'm still the best athlete in the family.
Okay, so you and Jeff Brown run a post route. Who's quicker? Who's faster?
Yeah, so Jeff was a year behind me. Malcolm and I are in the same grade, class 84. Malcolm and I were actually roommates at college together.
Okay.
And so, yeah, my crew, senior year was Jeff, Malcolm, Chris Jackson. I mean, I was with Chris's son is at Hampton, and so I'm kind of like, Uncle Mark is in town if you need anything. But yeah, that was my absolute crew. And when I got home from college, Eric Harris, we hung out big time. Eric is a Kappa. He did the right thing, like myself.
My dad was a
And
Kappa, so yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I know you guys are having your 40th reunion. I will crash like I crashed many shaker parties. Um, but the Shaker girls weren't loving me. I tried. I struck out many times with the Shaker girls, but that's okay because there were Heights girls. So it was Shaker's very fond memories.
Okay.
What was that like being a student going to US and crashing the Shaker parties or trying to intermingle with the Shaker folk?
Well, Eric, I hung out with, and when Malvern, my crew was Matt McNulty, Curtis Degenfelder. We're still friends to this day. And, literally on the weekends, I mean, through junior high, when people went to Byron, from Malvern went to Byron, I remember every Friday we'd call each other up and we're like, what are we doing Friday or Saturday? And I wouldn't see them during the week, and they would kind of say such and such is having a party or to get together, and it just continued on through high school. I had a kind of a steady girlfriend my senior year and in high school, and she went to Heights High, and we would our kind of rule was we would spend one day on the weekend together, but the other day we would hang with our friends, and so I would be like, well, is it Friday or Saturday? Because I was just hanging out with my crew. So it was cool. I mean, I felt like I went to Shaker except during the Monday through Friday.
Okay.
I mean, I will be at your 40th reunion.
All right. Like Ice Cube strolling through the West without a vest. Okay. All right. So, where did you go? Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to University of Pennsylvania. So,
Oh, you were Penn. Okay.
yeah, I went to Penn. Malcolm and I went to Penn together, and we roomed together, a couple of years. So, did the college thing. U.S. prepared me fairly well for college, but. Yeah, Penn was a great experience. Really enjoyed my collegiate years. Probably enjoyed them too much. I'm kind of a late bloomer. My people at my job don't believe this, but I was the one that my boys, my fraternity brothers were worried about. And now I'm a physician. Now I'm the president of my practice, and people don't believe me. Like, you would not recognize 20-year-old Mark Fleming. I mean, because I work hard, and I was the one they were worried about. So I kind of bloomed late academically. Just really kind of, I always was a good student, but really kind of set my mind. Work really hard. I had to study a lot, and so really not so much in undergrad, but in medical school, I mean, I would study 12-hour days. Would be nothing. That's what I had to do to be successful.
I see. So, in your family, because I did a little, I try to dig a little bit,
You digging deep. I hope not too deep, Dave.
Well, that's another conversation. I got files on people, so anyway. But I saw this picture, and it was such a dope. I call it a Cartier-Bresson moment, and it was of your father, and he was he at a board teaching, pointing at something, but your comment under it was, it just resonated, like following in the footsteps. So you come from a family of all physicians, or was it your father, then you?
So my father was a physician. I lost my father about 15 years ago. In fact, a prostate cancer, and that's kind of my area of expertise. We can get to that later. But my father was a physician. My oldest brother, Jimmy, is a physician, and my mother was a nurse. And, you know, I was struck by, I'm blanking on the brother's name, who was on your show. He was talking about the influence of his father on him.
Tony
And
Peck.
Tony Beck, thank you. Tony Peck, yes. And, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up, Gabe. I really wanted to say to, you know, we are, I'm a father now. I have two children, and my father is my absolute hero. And I work, my father had a saying, get up and be somebody. And, I kind of live by that model today. And everyone who knows me, they hear, I just shared with the staff, get up and be somebody. And, the pride that my father instilled in us to be a Fleming, and just to be the best that you can be. And you represent something bigger than yourself. I think that is key. When I think of, fathers, I want to be a good as father as, Lorna Wisham. I knew her father, and how these great friends who are like sisters to me, who they just adored their father. And you just try to set that example for your children of being there every day, setting an example of working hard. And I hope my kids one day will look back on and say, my dad was special. And I'm really inspired by the friends that I have from Shaker to kind of bring it back to the topic of, I just kind of was in reference of, how people who are friends now, I think you guys have mentioned Rhonda Brown and Jeff Brown. I mean, Mr. Brown was the man. I mean, yes. He was quiet. You never saw Mr. Brown raise his voice, but he was the man. And, I think that inspiration, Tony Peck talked about, Mr. Asamoto, just kind of the impact that he had. And so I think in a community, I think we're at the age now, we're in our 50s, that we can give back and make a difference in people's lives. And it's not about what you do, it's being just a steadying force. And I think I first saw that at Shaker.
Yeah. You in saying all that, I think obviously representation matters, and deeply matters. And I also philosophically, I think about a person's sunrise and their sunset, and the dash in between should be full of meaning and some matter of service. Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah.
Here? So I totally heard you about that.
So I came in late because sorry about technical difficulties. When
No
you
worries.
came on, I started to freeze, so I was freaking out. What's the origin of your parents? Are they Ohioans? Are they what?
No, my mom's from Jersey. My mother is the oldest of four girls. She grew up in Garfield, New Jersey, outside of New York. And she, if anyone who's ever met my mom is strong-willed. I have my mom's sense of self. And she, my mom clearly always has spoken her mind. And she was the oldest and wanted to kind of escape Garfield, New Jersey, a town outside of New York. And she became a nurse. Went to New York for a Bellevue School of Nursing, and then her first job was in D.C. And my father, who was it was a medical school at the time. My father's from a small town, Midland, Pennsylvania. So if you can imagine where the Ohio River, where Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio come together. My father grew up in the steel mill town of Pennsylvania, and I think I was a senior was for the first time that I actually spent 4th of July in Cleveland. Actually, I was a junior because we went to Midland, Pennsylvania every 4th of July. That's what we did. And so good, hardworking folks. My father became a physician. My mother was a nurse, but first generation kind of college. My mother was a nurse, and that's so common for so many people. I consider myself second generation. I don't know too many third generation blacks of our peer in terms of went to college. It's like, education was a priority in our household. So I think that was the value system that we had, that you were expected to do well in school. And so I think those are the great values that we got.
So being the physician, being inspired by your father, what were some of the lessons? I know he told you to wake up and be somebody, but did he ever tell you about the things that he went through going through medical school, especially back then, being a person of color? What were some of the things that he shared with you?
Well, I'm looking at I'm in my office at work. My father gave me a letter right before I went to medical school, and it says, and this is one of his sayings: "What man has done, man can do." So, you just learn that it's really about perseverance and doing a little bit every single day. So he didn't kind of talk about the experience of being, quote, black in medical school. He went to Howard, so he had a different experience. Okay. I went to Medical College of Ohio up in Toledo. But I think he just instilled in me that, you can do it. You have the talent to do it. It's what you do with that talent. I think when I look back on people and look back on people's success or lack thereof, it's what people do with their talent. I take pride and I work hard, and I just don't quit. And so I was so I don't think he instilled anything, Eric, except get up and be somebody, and what man has done, man can do. And people of lesser talent have than myself are physicians. And so I'm the same guy, from elementary school. I saw Jenny Kaufman put a post on. It's like when you put on the thing, like, oh, Mark Fleming's going to be on. I'm like, I'm no smarter than I was back in 6th grade. It's just I work really hard, and I think you can work hard no matter what you do to be successful.
So, at home, mom's a nurse and dad's a doctor. So there were no sick days for you. You couldn't be out here fronting, right?
No sick days. I don't know if you ever see. There's a viral video online about a kid's being, when you're sick, the kid has a broken arm and the father's a physician and mom's a physician, and it's like, oh, it's okay, you can go to work. I mean, that's how it was. I mean, I don't think if I've ever missed a day sick here at work. It's like, hey, if you can breathe, you can go to work.
Okay. Yeah. I follow you. I follow you on that.
Work hard, play hard.
That's right. And you're nice with a scalpel, if you have to be.
Yes. So. Well, I don't use a scalpel, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a physician as a kid? Did you play? Did you act like you were a physician when you were a kid, or did you act like a football player? Both?
So it kind of hit me at, I don't know if you guys have brothers and sisters, but I was the nice guy. I was a sweet one, and of my brothers, compared to my brothers, they say. So my father really always wanted me to be a physician. He really wanted me to be a physician. And when I went to school, I was pre-med. I kind of meandered my way through college, took some time off, came back. And my application to medical school actually was when I can almost recite it. Like Mark went to school to do the following the family tradition, and Mark kind of wandered aimlessly through college. And the day that Mark told his father he didn't want to be a physician, I became a man, and I was 25 years old. So I remember to the day sitting in my father's office. My father was old school. You know, you met with him in his office, and I remember sitting down to him and saying, "Dad, I do not want to be a doctor. I want to, do this healthcare administration thing." And Eric, I wasn't a man until I was 25 years old, because when you stand up to your hero and say, "I'm not doing what you want me to do, I got to do what I want to do," it freed me of the family tradition. And then after that, within 6 months, it hit me that all I wanted to do was be a physician. And so, but it was much different going back with the trying to get into medical school with the motivation that this is what I want to do. This was what my calling is. And so I was not a kid that, when I was 10, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor because I thought my family, my father, my hero, I only have one hero. My father's my hero. So, so that's what it was for me. I was 25 years old.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, because you think about a lot of other people would fall into the familiar pressure and go to law school with their heart not into it, and just following what they think their parents want, and winds up being unhappy.
But I think I didn't mean to cut you off. I think the key is, and I think, again, bring this back to the shaker and the influence of shaker, is that, I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't have any kind of major blemishes. Wasn't arrested. I didn't have any children. Not that there's anything wrong with having children at a young age, but it's like I was able to recover. And I think what happens is people can get addicted. We all know people who were addicted, and they just get caught up in stuff. And I was blessed. I had a safety net. My safety net was my family, my friends, my fraternity brothers in college. I had such a safety net that, you just need to focus. And once I focused, I was fine. And I think that's the key. And when you look at people, I actually saw Tom Boylan last week, and we were talking and we were catching up. We realized that we played Little League together. Again, Gabe, there goes the Shaker Boys League.
Hey, I didn't do it. Don't blame me.
But
don't turn off, everybody. Don't turn off.
It was just, the people that, I was able to avoid some major pitfalls. And that's, and now people see me now, but I just was lucky. I didn't have any major, addictions or anything like that. And I'm lucky and blessed.
Yeah, we have a saying, life be lifing. And all these challenging tipping points that one may encounter, especially at a vulnerable age, and I can't agree with you enough about the safety and support network, to being blessed with something like that. So,
specialization, that's what I
okay. Yeah.
You chose oncology. We talked about that. Was that based on, what was that based on? Why did you choose that?
Yeah. So, kind of how I got to where I am now professionally. So I went to medical school, Medical College of Ohio in Toledo. The best thing about Toledo when I was there was there's nothing to do in Toledo. So I was a very good medical student in Toledo. So I did well, and I was in a nurturing environment. And I think that I went to a small medical school. I knew the president. I knew the dean. I was very active in different organizations. I actually saw my first leadership skills came out in medical school, but it was that nurturing environment. And when I was listening to Tony Peck, when people support you, you don't know they're supporting you, it goes a long way. So from there, I went to residency in Philadelphia at Temple University Hospital. That was a great, I had previously worked there. I had referenced I worked in healthcare administration, so I felt like I was coming home to Philadelphia. I was comfortable in Philadelphia. I did well there. I had a clinical, I was very good with patients, and I became known, Eric, in the residency program. If there's someone need to have a difficult conversation, the family in room 232 is causing lots of problems, and go get Fleming. So I was just good at those tough conversations.
Wow.
Was it because I was, a Black physician in Philadelphia? I don't know, but I was always very comfortable with conversations. And I remember training at Fox Chase Hospital, and I saw this woman. And she had a big lung mass and some liver masses, and we biopsied it. I was on call. It was Christmas was on Monday that morning, and we got back that it came back small cell cancer, which is very responsive to chemotherapy. This is a woman I admitted the night before Eric couldn't walk into the hospital, and we gave her chemotherapy Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She walked out of the hospital on Monday, and I just remember her saying, "Dr. Fleming, thank you. You found this." And, I was hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I really haven't looked back on oncology ever since. And so that was the turning point for me of being an oncologist. I've been hooked ever since. At this point in my career, I pretty much only see genitourinary cancers, which is prostate, bladder, testicular. Many would consider me a national expert in prostate and bladder cancer. And so I've done some research, but everyone out there, if you're listening, everyone who's from class of 84 should have had their PSA checked. They should have had a colonoscopy. You should be getting, if you're fair skinned, you should be getting a dermatologist to look for melanoma. And God forbid you're smoking, so you need to stop smoking. But I just been, it just was the perfect specialty for me. Again, it goes with, I was always pretty comfortable with having difficult conversations with families. So, and I unfortunately have difficult conversations, but I rather someone hear it from me than from someone who doesn't come from a place of empathy and compassion.
And you know what? When I was putting my notes together, that was some of the internal dialogue I had about you, Mark, was that I could see you having the personal bedside manner that is often lacking out here today, especially with younger medical doctors coming through the profession and stuff. Like the the empathy or just how to talk to people is sort of being lost. But I had that feeling about you. Yeah, I could see Mark being the warm doctor, making people comfortable.
My mother had cancer. My mother had breast cancer. My father, I lost my father to prostate cancer. So, I've been a son. Who's who's dealt with it. So I can empathize with what people are going through.
I have a question. This is from one of our fellow classmates, Adriana Glenn. She works in the medical field. I'm going to connect you guys offline, but she was asking about the status of gene therapy and oncology and the advances in the genetic screening for some of those cancers like pancreatic, which are not found till later stages because of early symptoms or similar to non-cancerous diseases. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so let me say that oncology field, cancer care is rapidly evolving. So I would say that, one, there are now tests out there that Gabe Tolliver could get, Eric Green can get, that you can find out if you have mutations that suggest that you have a liver cancer. And so they're commercially available. I don't want to it's something easily findable, and people, if they got connected with me offline, I can share those with you. So most cancers are not genetic based or germline based. Germline means something that runs in the Tolliver family. Prostate cancer, for example, 10% of prostate cancers are their genetic mutations. So 90% is not. There can be what's called somatic mutations. Those are mutations that evolve over time. And those mutations, that's probably what the majority of cancers are from that standpoint. Where cancer care is going, there is chemotherapy, while it is still used. I just came back from the big cancer meeting in Chicago last week. That's where I saw Tom Boylan. Was chemotherapy. There are no new chemotherapies. It's immunotherapy. It's taking advantage of targeted therapy of mutations and taking advantage of our immune system. There's what's called CAR T and what's called BiTE, bi T cell engagers. I am a solid tumor doctor. BiTE therapy, bi T cell engagers are just revolutionizing care for multiple myeloma, lymphomas, leukemias. And I'm going to have to go back and learn how to deliver, because it's a different set of toxicities and different type of management that I have to. In prostate cancer, all the new drugs, I do lots of research, are with BiTEs and with CAR T, and also using what's called radiopharmaceuticals theranostics. So the field is evolving rapidly, but people got to get tested. I mean, my priority is my children. My goal is to be able to see my grandchildren. I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. That means I have to take care of my health. And so I work out at least 3 days a week. I make that as a priority. I don't smoke. I rarely drink, except for the 40th reunion that's coming up. But I think that the field is evolving. There's no magic bullet. I think that we've had some great advancements, and I'm a big believer in clinical trials, and that's where we're going to get the big home runs that are coming down the pike. So it's not gene therapy. I don't know if that's for gene therapy implies that there's a bad gene and you take that gene out and you replace it. That's probably not the future of pancreatic cancer specifically, but what will be allowing our immune system to evade. Cancer cells have the ability to shut off our immune system, and so the future is arming our immune system to be able to work like it normally does from that standpoint.
I'd like to also say, Doctor, have folks look into a good dietary supplement called moringa, made from the moringa plant, as a super food booster for one's overall health and well-being. Moringa.
So my wife is she's a health educator, so she's turned this carnivore into basically I eat for the most part fish. I can't say that I'm I still have a steak now and then, but that is rare. And so what I eat, I've lost probably 10 pounds, 15 pounds in the last 6 months. And that's really from working out as well as eating more mindfully what I eat.
Yeah, very important.
I have a question. So we look at the way that we eat now and how industrialized our food and our diets have become. What is the correlation between that and how are we, preventive medicine helps from one point of view, but then you've got to look at our environmental variables and challenges. How do you see that? How do you see that correlates to technology and helping combat cancer?
Eric, it absolutely correlates. The food that we, the additives that we add to foods, and eating naturally or more holistic and it takes time, and people want to get everything done in 6 minutes or less. So it's awful convenient to swing by and pick something up to eat as opposed to going home and cooking it. So, the more we can do to more natural things is definitely a plus. I won't go as far as saying that those things are curative. I've definitely come across patients who like, well, if I do this, I don't eat sugar or I don't do that. The treatments that we have are definitely beneficial. But you definitely can aid to you can add to your well-being and wellness by how you eat and how you sleep. How many of us get a good night's sleep on a regular basis? And so how you eat, sleep, all those things factor in our overall health.
I want to say, when I think about Shaker and other places, about sleep and health, I used to like when you were like when I drove through the community, I would always marvel at how dark people's houses were like after 7 o'clock, and more than likely they were older people relative to us at that period of time. And I get it, I understand it. Take your ass to bed early and get your sleep. Sleep is gold. So I don't know. That's what came to mind.
Well,
You said that.
I'm known for, my brother Chris would loves to tell the story of my brother Mark. Might be asleep at 8:30. I go to bed pretty early. I wake up pretty early. I wake up about 4 o'clock every morning, and so that would be one of the many stories that my brother Chris would say about his little brother Mark is that I go to bed early, so I believe in my sleep.
Yeah. I had to go over to the comment section. Uh, Derek Burgess.
Oh,
Derek Burgess said, "I don't remember him. Couldn't have
oh.
been much of a of a threat."
So, okay, so
Let's see if I
Derek
can
in the
bring him on.
comments, I remember you well, Derek Burgess. You used to anchor the 4x4 for Shaker, and unfortunately, we never ran head to head as seniors. But you used to always say to me that if we were to run against each other, you would beat me in the 400. But we never ran against each other in the 400. So we can race in our minds at the 40th reunion.
And if Derek is still on, is Derek still on? Because we can bring people into the studio. So if anybody wanted to come in and testify, you can come into the studio. Let me just drop the.
I couldn't beat Steve Smith though. Steve was fast. Steve was a heck of an athlete.
Yeah, and there's some debate about that actually, because there's Danny Weinman. Danny Weinman claims he beat Steve Smith every time they raced.
We can talk about that over a drink, but Danny Wyman cleaned a lot of things back in high school. Danny didn't run track. I think he played baseball, if I recall.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you got to do it on the track, Danny. 40 times don't cut it. So, they just don't cut it. So,
Yeah.
anyone who wants to reach out to Danny Wyman and said Mark Fleming said he called you out. Yes, I did call Danny Wyman out. Okay.
Come see him. Come see him.
I did it on the track.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Let me see here, Eric. Anything else we need to?
I was just thinking about your job and how rewarding it could be, but at the same time, how sad it could be.
Yeah, tough.
And
man.
what keeps you going? It's.
Well, what keeps me going? We're about 45, 50 physician practice on medical oncology, GYN oncology, radiation oncology. I'm actually the president of our group right now. What's rewarding is I'm actually the president of our group now, and what's rewarding is when you can attempt to transform care in the community. So to be more, I'm very proud of the fact after the George Floyd situation, we created an inclusion council at our practice. And why that's important is, there's not too many private physician groups that take on inclusion, and that's been extremely rewarding in order to kind of lead our organization in that direction. It's one thing when a health system does it because the board of directors is telling them, the public is telling what to do, but to get a group of majority culture physicians on board to embrace, like, this is what we need to do, that's been rewarding. I think patient care, I'll see patients on Tuesday. Patient care is extremely rewarding, when sitting down with the family and helping them navigate that journey and be hopeful and say that they're not alone in this journey. That's extremely rewarding. So I'm blessed. I have many different rewards I get from my job. From my leadership roles is a different type of reward than patient care. Patient care is ultimately the greatest reward, and I always take care of patients.
Right on. So I wanted to say this earlier, and Eric and I, we work like yin and yang, and sometimes it's like we take the thoughts out of each other's and put it out there. But I wanted to say there was a quote if you know where it's from. There's a million medical skills a doctor displays. Dermatology is treatment of the skin. There's anesthesiology, ophthalmology, internal medicine, and plastic surgery, orthopedic and pathology. So tell us about oncology. That was what I wanted to drop on you earlier as a little, if you had recognized that quote.
That's a good quote. Oncology is, you treat the family. I mean,
Yeah.
Dermatologists, no one takes their family to see the dermatologist. No disrespect to dermatology, but I take care of whole families, sons, brothers, sisters, spouses, especially with my population of men. Men, we don't like to talk when we go to the doctor. So if I want to know what's going on, I got to talk to Mrs. Green and Mrs. Tyler or something like that, because they tell me the real deal.
Yeah. Well, that was a paraphrase quote from UTFO, Roxanne.
Wow, a UTFO.
Holy game.
We'll have to play UTFO. Who's the DJ at the 40th?
That's still to be determined. So we're working on that. But yeah, we'll make sure we drop that. But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, and you touched upon it earlier with what Eric asked about. That is a serious thing, and oftentimes having to be the bearer of bad news. This was another question from Adriana, and you may have touched upon it earlier. If you were to speak to the health disparities in healthcare and medicine, especially in the field of oncology, and potential solutions to address it so that there may be better outcomes for all.
Ooh,
that's a big one. So you can take it piece by piece, take what you can. We'll leave the rest on the table.
Well, I think there's, when people talk about health disparities, there's disparities that exist in all aspects of society, and there's different ways to deal with it. But I think we have to first recognize it. And once you recognize it and acknowledge it, then I think then you can get at solutions to it. And so I think that there have been efforts to recognize and acknowledge it. And I think there's people in places who are trying to address it. And I think one of the things I've learned, and I think, this is again, bringing this all back home to Shaker, we all have different ways of doing things. And so you're probably not going to see me on the line kind of and I say the line, the strike line, or combating against this. I'm going to kind of attack things from a boardroom perspective, and I think there's different ways to do that. I think one of the appreciations I got from Shaker in that environment is that there's different ways to do things, and we all have our strengths. And so I'm actually just recently asked to sit on a board of a local medical school here. There's a merger between local medical schools and one of the colleges. And so I'll be able to impact health disparities by sitting on that board differently than someone who is a primary care physician, like my father was in East Cleveland. My father impacted health disparities by being on the front lines. He also was in the boardrooms. So I think there's different ways to do it. And I would say to people, one size does not fit everyone. And I think that's what Shaker and that kind of the diversity of Shaker has taught me. There's more than one way to do things. That I knew of Tony Peck. I was afraid of Tony Peck because I was a guy from US, bring things full circle. And, I couldn't, we were different. We'd have different experiences and backgrounds, but I can relate to Tony Peck now and what he was doing and how he made it safer for me. And so I appreciate, the diversity that Shaker had. And I think it shaped all of our lives. And I think that's why we're all successful. And I commend you, Gabe, and you, Eric. Thanks for having me on. It's been an honor and a treat because Shaker was a special place. And I think that we saw a lot of things that many people, we came from a melting pot. And Shaker was very diverse. There was, up by Mercer and Malvern, South Park and North Park, and there was Lindholm. I mean, Lindholm and Shaker Boulevard were those are two different worlds. But I came from both, and I remember my Lindholm roots. But I think my Malvern perspective was a very valuable perspective as well. And that's what I would say to Adriana is that I can't solve that issue. It's much bigger than me, but I acknowledge it and I recognize it. And my solutions to that will be trying to do it in the boardroom. Last thing, I know we're getting tight on time. I was part of prostate cancer forum, a prostate cancer foundation, excuse me. I was a part of the first guidelines for screening for Black men and prostate cancer. Okay, so as opposed to why isn't it done? Why is it why aren't we doing this? That I now can point to a set of guidelines that had never been addressed in terms of for Black men what should be done. Bottom line is that by 45, all the brothers out there should be getting their PSA checked. And so, should have been 40 years old. We say begin having the conversation at 40. And yes, you can consider doing it at 40, anywhere from 40 to 45. But anyone who's listening to this from a class of 84, if you haven't had your PSA checked, brother, you need to go out there tomorrow, this week, to get it done. If you haven't got a colonoscopy at our age, you got to get it done. If you're smoking, you got to stop smoking. And we're obese. So how we have to address it, we have to take ownership of our health and our wellness. And but there's different ways to attack the healthcare disparities.
Right on with that. Hey, one idea I wanted to put out to you, especially in terms of awareness, especially in the region that you're in, Norfolk. Trucks, like the food trucks that go out, like the little mobile medical trucks to do maybe PSA awareness and workshops. And I'm going to say that I profiled a brother up in Wisconsin who uses the barbershops as like the initial health screening for men in the neighborhoods. And then they do referrals from there. So if you ever want information about that, I can put you in touch with him.
I would. And I think I know you're talking about. So I'm involved with the Hampton Roads Prostate Health Forum, and we've been doing this for greater than 15 years of creating greater awareness. So there's a lot of different ways, and the barbershop is a great approach. So I commend those brothers who are doing that.
Right on, right on. Well, all right, Eric. What's that question we ask about who they'd like?
Yeah, who would you like to hear from? Who would you like to listen to? Who should we next bring on our show?
Well, I think there's some, we all have different experiences. I mean, I think you have to go through the who are the leaders of Shaker Ware. I mean, when I think of people, I think of Curtis Degenfelder would be great. My boy Matt McNulty, Eric Harris, Chris Jackson, and some of the ladies. If you can get Lorna Wisham, she's all famous now, and
Yes.
I think you get some people different. I think you've done a good job in terms of different walks of life, and the fact that you got U.S. In the mix. That was great. I mean, I think what you guys are doing is great, and I look forward to reconnecting with so many people. So maybe you can get Derek Burgess on, or Danny Wyman to kind of to explain why he could beat Steve Smith and me. Maybe he can defend himself.
I think we should get them both on at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds what's
It's
up.
it's all good, Derek. I appreciate it. Just so you know, I've always remembered you from these days. So it's all good.
Oh, we've got messaging from Adriana Glenn. She said she very much enjoyed listening to you, Dr. Fleming, and she loves the approaches suggested to addressing health disparities.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, Dr. Fleming. Hey, it's great having you on, man.
I enjoyed it.
And,
Thank you.
And listen, if we do anything health related in the time to come, we'll certainly circle back with you, especially as it relates to the prostate check and everything else like that. That might be something we do just throwing here, maybe like in November or something like that in the fall, something like that. And, amplify anything that you might be doing, in your own endeavors. Well, all right. Well, we're going to wrap it up on this Sunday. To let you know, Dr. Mark Fleming will beat anybody out here on the track. Holler at him. You know who you are. And,
now on the golf course. On the golf course now.
On the golf course now. So,
yeah.
Taking everybody's money. Mark Nance, anybody playing golf, come see Dr. Fleming, for he can relieve you of your money.
You should get Mark Nance on.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. He was my running buddy. He was the Danny Tepper and Mark Nance. Those are the guys I ran with in high school.
So, all right. We got our music going.
All right. Well, I just lost it again. Oh, well. Do you have it on your side?
Yeah. Let me get the music, and we'll lead you out. Hold on 1 second here.
Uh-oh. That's the wrong one. Uh-oh. We're live.
All right, here we go. All right,
there we go.
Thank you, everybody who tuned in live with us. Shout out to Ken Johnson, Derek, Adriana Glenn, C. Dow, everybody. Y'all have a rest of a blessed Sunday. We'll see you next week. Who we got on next week? We'll let you know. I forget.
Also, okay. We have, this is live transactions here. So I've been able to go back and re-engineer, remaster a lot of these episodes. We just reloaded. We're working on John Denny. And did we reload John Denny?
Denny Young's we're working on.
Denny Young, we have so many Denny's, I get them mixed up.
So, but anyway, if you haven't checked out the Shaker merch, check out the Shaker merch. And one last thing, Mark, before you go, I know time is valuable. We have to do our commercial. So, you went to school in the same neighborhood as this man. Do you support this man's pizza? I mean,
Paul Newman.
yes, Newman's Own, quality pizza, uncured pepperoni, and many other delicious pizzas in their frozen section. So, just had to let you know that fun factoid. He went to school in the same neighborhood where this man grew up. Come a long way. Malvern excellence. But he didn't go to Malvern. But anyway, Newman's Own. Fine grocery stores everywhere. Okay, well, that's it. We're signing off. Thank you again for showing, coming through, dropping knowledge. This has been the Shaker Heights Experiences May Vary podcast with Eric Green and your Gabe Tolliver and our guest, Dr. Mark Fleming. All right. Until next time, everybody, be safe, stay hydrated.